looking at my life. That's so cool.
Jennifer Aniston is trolling you on Instagram.
She's admitted this, but she had an Instagram before. She was on Instagram before people knew she was on Instagram.
It's all about that secret Instagram.
That's right.
Well, what about you have your podcast, you have your show, What a Joke with Papa and Fortune. Do
Hmm.
you have anyone that you would just love to interview? Like if you could do an interview, like is there anyone on the top of your list?
Um, well, Carol Burnett was that person for me. I was like, she's been on Netflix shows. How can we talk to her? So we actually did interview her on the phone for like 30 minutes, and I cried at the end of it because I got to tell her about my grandmother. She asked me about my name. Just hearing someone I've loved my entire life just have that kind of conversation with me, just like all the emotions just came back. So that one's, I wouldn't mind talking to her again because I would cry again. Who would be? I mean, I would love to interview Oprah. That would be pretty insane. She's a little too busy
That's not a bad one
to
to.
call into Netflix as a joke. But that would be pretty incredible to get to have any sort of conversation with her. I would really love that. Because I really like her and admire her.
She
Um,
would be a good one. I mean, I
yeah,
get it.
Beyonce.
Well,
She's not busy, right?
listen, I get it. Well, first of all, I have cried after interviews too, so I totally understand.
Yeah.
Like you just have moments.
Yeah.
I had a moment today where like I interviewed Marie Osmond and it was
Mm-hmm.
just like I don't know. It was just one of
She
those
seemed
things of
very
like
sweet.
beyond. And then
Yeah.
afterwards I cried. I was like,
Yeah, I get
what's
it.
just for a minute. Like, but then I
Well,
pulled myself together.
there's certain people that we've all come up with, right? They're a
Yeah.
part of our childhood, a part of our early years, still a part of our lives where like suddenly that like you think about the person that you were, me, I think about growing up in a town of 9,000 people. How to you never think when you're in this tiny town that you'll ever be in a position to do anything beyond that town, or you never think about that you could be a comedian or a journalist or whatever. That just seems so far-fetched. Narnia seems more, realistic than Hollywood to a person in a tiny town.
Totally.
And then suddenly you're in this like full circle moment where you're talking to this person that you watched for years. It's definitely an emotional thing.
You're like, I'm gonna own this, but then I'm gonna break down after.
Yeah, I'm gonna do my job and then cry like a baby.
It's totally how I do it. What about, because you mentioned a few times like Chelsea was the first one that kind of gave you a chance, and like
Hmm.
you were quote unquote different, as you say, and you don't fit the box. Like, was that really a thing? And like, do you think the world has changed? Like, what would it
Hmm.
be different if you were just starting out now, or you think it would be the same challenges, or media
Um,
has come far?
yeah, I mean, I definitely think uh in the last 5 or 6 years that the industry has started to embrace people of all walks of life, of all different shapes and sizes. Being different was suddenly started. It started to be more of a feather in your cap per se, than being the cookie cutter thing. And I experienced that early on in my career, where like you're not skinny, you're not, you have this thick accent, your hair's wild, you're tall and chubby. We don't know what to do with you. Now we're entering this time of like, why wouldn't she be on TV? You know what I mean? Like it's cool to like finally be coming into an era where that being different isn't held against you. And I find in stand up, I was singing stand up for years. It's just the industry is very late to it. Audiences were telling me, "Hey, we like you. We like that you're different. We relate to you. We relate to your stories." And the industry was like, "No thanks." So the audiences were telling me pretty early on. So I always appreciated that, and I only knew that because I did stand up. Um, and so what the industry is finally catching on to is that people now care more about relatability than they do about if you're, supermodel or whatever that thing is that used to be so praised.
I would agree with that. I think people like relatability and flaws, and just
Mm-hmm.
like today I'm having together and yesterday I
Yeah.
was a mess. Sorry, but
Yeah.
this is how I am today. What about, like you got married, like you have your sweater on with a rainbow. I'm like a self-respecting gay man, so like yay, go. But like you've always been like, a great representation for the community,
Oh,
which,
thank you.
you've always been. How was getting married during this time of our worlds and everything that's going on
Um,
in COVID?
Definitely interesting. Because we had planned to get married, and we thought we would get married in like August of 2020. That was always sort of in the back of our head, but we knew we were never going to have like a traditional wedding. We always thought we'd have a thing and then a big party. Then COVID hit, and we were like, well, I guess we're not doing that. We had started to look at venues and luckily hadn't nailed anything down. And yeah, we just sort of put it aside and thought, I guess it just won't happen for a while. And then Ruth, truth be told, Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, and I think you can attest as a gay, the gays were just like, shit, what does this mean for us? It was a really dark time, and politically, not that it's not now. There was a lot of question marks. An election was looming. The Supreme Court was just about to significantly shift. And we thought, what if we can't? What if we've been together, 6 years and suddenly can't get married? And, it seemed like a real possibility at the time. So we were like, what are we waiting on? Let's just get married. We've been together long enough. And it ended up being the most beautiful way that we could have ever gotten married. And we never would have done it like that had it not been for the state of the world. But it got to be about us and our day, and we zoomed our families. I think it was harder for them to not be there. But then this past October, we finally had a party, and everyone came out. And luckily, it was right before the variant got out of hand, and we had, everyone felt good and grateful to be in a room with friends and family, and it was a really another beautiful weekend. So we got very lucky that somehow it, even though it didn't go as planned, it ended up being really perfect for us.
And it was a lot in part because of like Ruth Bader Ginsburg passing, and just
Yeah, I mean, just not, we as a, people who aren't gay don't realize the fragility of, if you haven't had certain rights, they can be taken away. And if you think anything's set in stone, I mean, I think the current political climate shows you that nothing is quite set in stone. Everything can be brought back up, and you don't know the outcome, and so we didn't want to take any chances.